wait. And baby, I'm TFC till I die.
Sorry, just getting back into the swing of things.
Dude, that's right. You hear his voice. It's Jeffrey P. Nesker, my main guy. Alongside me, it's another edition of the Toronto Till I Die podcast. It's been a minute, but we have found a way to kind of reconvene here. I guess let's start the show off just with some news, some sad news on our part. Mitchell Tierney will no longer be joining us on the Toronto Till I Die podcast. Mitch obviously has picked up a lot of stuff on his plate, and as you guys know, it's a lot of work that goes into putting on a show. So, without Mitch already knows the way that we feel about him, but without getting into too much depth, the show would not be where it is today without the work of Mitchell Tierney. He will be missed, of course, but make sure you continue to support the great work that he is doing at the Canadian Premier League as well as at Derby. So keep a close eye out for him, and we wish him nothing but the best. But the show must go on. It's down to two Musketeers. Jeffrey P. Nesker, like I said, it's been a minute, man. You've managed to squeeze in some time here. How you feeling today?
I'm good, man. I'm happy to be doing this again. I missed you like crazy. I missed talking about the club we love like crazy, and I missed myself like crazy. I mean, we're back in real life now, man. Full-time jobs, all of that stuff that it entails, and it's been a minute, but happy to be back, man. Happy to discuss this club and where they're at right now, which I think is good and bad. A lot more bad than good, I would say, despite some pretty interesting stats that I've got pulled up, and despite two wins and a tie. But yeah, and I'm looking at your rundown and I'm loving it, and let's go. It's version 2.0. When we did the rebrand, we knew it would be version 2.0, and now we're right in the swing of version 2.0. So let's get started, Mike.
Yeah, man. So on that note, I'm just gonna open the floor to auditions. We're currently vacant a third host, so we're just gonna audition a few people. Maybe as the weeks go on, if you guys think that's you,
absolutely
slide into our DMs at Toronto Till I Die, and who knows, man, crazier things have happened. Jeffrey, of course, will be the one to veto them and not veto them. So if you guys have any complaints, just direct them right at my boy Jeffrey P. Nesker over here.
Yeah. I'm putting a ban on sleeveless shirts. Anybody that comes has to wear sleeves. That is an important aspect for me. So if you're into sleeveless clothing,
clearly
you're not invited. I'm sorry. No, that's just the way it's going to be.
But that like the DM thing, that's kind of a joke. I'd say a half joke, actually.
3 is the magic number. We're gonna try doing this as a 2, but there's a reason why most of these shows do 3. So onward and upward. I'm just happy to be back, man. Let's just go and see what happens before we start divining the future, Mikey.
Yeah, you're getting a live look into our behind the scenes planning of our show. It goes exactly like this, just complete chaos most of the time. But that's what it is, hosting a soccer podcast in 2022 in Toronto, Canada. And without getting too sentimental,
off the back of the Panda.
Without getting too sentimental, who would have thought we'd have made it all the way here off the back of a pandemic? So
100%,
excited to
100%.
see kind of what the future holds here. But without further ado, Jeff, let's talk about some Toronto FC, which is what everyone is here to listen about. The Reds.
The Reds.
6-game winless streak is now snapped in the league on the heels of, as you mentioned, a draw at DC and a midweek win in the Canadian Premier League at HFX, which, by the way, was quite the spectacle. I don't really have that on our rundown. We don't have to talk about that too much, but quick shout out to Jacob Schaffelberg and everyone else at the Schaffelberg family who kind of...
That video was absolutely fantastic content. It really, really was. It was just... I mean, I couldn't stop smiling, and I think I watched it about 6 or 7 times in a row. That's the kind of stuff you love to see, right? Hometown boy makes good. The fans at Wanderers grounds were really up for it, and they gave the Reds a pretty good run for their money. I think. I don't want to say TFC showed them a lack of respect, but that starting lineup was. I mean, we've been privy to a lot of really, really odd starting lineups following Toronto FC over the last couple of seasons, but this one was a Frankenstein monster. So maybe it was down to injuries, maybe it was down to fixture congestion, but certainly that was a game of two halves, right? The first half was a bit of a disaster for our boys, and then of course when you brought in the starters in the second half, I think that things ended up where they should have. But certainly
that's a good analysis.
It was a run for the money
of the game, Jeff. And like I said, we're not going to go too in depth about that today. And it's really funny. I'm already getting texts about the vacant co-host position and people sending in their applications. We'll see. It's going to be a competitive
Let's
game.
go, man.
Someone has to fill out. We'll see. What wasn't too competitive on the weekend was Toronto FC's 3-2 victory over the Chicago Fire. I mean, that one had ugly kind of written all over it. Heading into the game, it had ugly written all over it. You had the two worst teams in the Eastern Conference up to that point of the year battling it off. The Chicago Fire were winless in 9 heading into that matchup. TFC obviously winless in 6 heading into that game. So it wasn't pretty.
It sure
wasn't. I think overall, I think that the match itself wasn't pretty, but we did have a few pretty moments and pretty nice moments from the Spaniard Alejandro Pozuelo. I guess overall, Jeff, what was your sort of takeaways from that 3-2 victory?
Were you there, Mike? I don't know if you were actually there in attendance or
every
not,
game.
Well, I mean, I try. I got in there just at kickoff, and then I had some other concerns, so I had to leave at the 70th. So I missed pauses. 2 goals essentially. I missed the penalty, and I missed the rocket. I mean, I heard them. I was running. BMO's impossible to get out of when you have to rush home to attend to tasks. So leaving a little bit early gave me the opportunity to try and find an Uber or a cab or something like that. But I heard the cheering through gritted teeth as I was walking away from BMO. It was a beautiful day for a football game.
Beautiful,
and that was the only thing beautiful about that day. I mean, from the kits down to the action on the field. It was a hell of a time, man. I mean, yeah, 3 points, that's great. But how much celebrating are we going to do with a 3-2 victory over the only team worse than us in the Eastern Conference, right? Like, that was a pretty hard fun one victory. And like I tweeted out sort of, through gritted teeth at the end of the game, moments of individual brilliance doth not a competitive team make, right? We are now in, and again, I'm probably, are we going to rest our laurels on moments of individual brilliance and do backflips? And I don't want to get too ahead, because looking at your rundown, there's a question that I think this suits more, but we're a systems team, and that systems and individual brilliance are sort of mutually exclusive. So to me, it's like we're celebrating what shouldn't be happening anymore under the Bob Bradley system, under the Bob Bradley administration, right? These moments of individual brilliance are sacrosanct to a systems-based approach. And that fills me, I mean, pun fully intended, with pause. Right. And I guess I'll save the rest of my rant here for, thank you. I guess I'll save the rest of my rant here for the big question you got up in the thing. But, my reactions were meh. I kept saying to the people around me, if this wasn't the Chicago Fire, and this was in the first 45 minutes, they'd be up 9,000-1 on us. Like, they were having their way with us. I mean, if it weren't for the fact that none of them can shoot on target for a damn, and that they are almost less together in their attack than we are, but they they were pelting us with shots throughout the first and second half. It's just it's down to them and I guess the talent on hand or their form at the moment that they weren't beating us resoundingly. And it felt like foregone conclusions. The goals that they scored on us, even the disallowed one, it felt like a foregone conclusion. Like the second that those attacks began, I turned to my wife and I said, "This is in the back of the net." I mean, I did it more often than the 2 goals that they scored because they sure as hell looked like they were going to run roughshod over us. But I mean, at no point in that game did I feel confident that TFC had this at any point. And agreed, I left at the 70th minute, so I didn't get that nice flush of the pause brace and all that wonderful vibes. But my experience was we were lucky to get out of there with 3 points. We were lucky to get out of there with a point.
Yeah, and just to recap, TFC went ahead 1-0 through DeAndre Kerr, his first goal at home for Toronto FC, his second goal of the season. That move was really nice. And the ball played inside by Luca Petrasso to find Jesus Jimenez, who drew his defenders in, laid it off to DeAndre, and DeAndre puts a pretty decent shot. You can argue it might have been able to be kept out by the keeper, but it wasn't. And TFC head into halftime with a 1-0 lead. And then after second half, it seemed things kind of just break down for Toronto FC. Shane O'Neill had to leave the game with an injury. And Lucas McNaughton checked into the match. There were a couple other changes that were made to kind of, I guess, get more out of the team, let's say.
Yeah, that's generally why you would make a substitution.
yeah. But no, because the game was still in the balance at that point, right? It's not like you're bringing on midfielders or whoever to kind of solidify your lead. You're doing it because you want to kind of still stay in that game, but it backfired. Toronto FC from the start of the second half to about the 70th minute were on their back heels. They were getting flooded with attack after attack by the Chicago Fire, who, by the way, on paper, actually have a really good team. I mean, Shaqiri, Brazil,
on paper, absolutely, yeah.
These guys are good players. You saw Shaqiri's class when he played. I mean, he put in a couple of balls that I thought were just outstanding, and you kind of see the frustration in his body language, which is actually something I kind of want to touch on a little bit later.
I agree, and I think you're going to make a bold assessment as to the body language of somebody coming into the team in a couple of weeks. But yeah, absolutely.
Wow, way to spoil it, Jeff. I thought I had something really nicely lined up there, but that's cool.
It's what I do, buddy. It's what I do. Did you miss me? Anyway, yeah.
Pozuelo, I think Pozuelo, that's what I was going to get to, is the 2 moments of brilliance by Alejandro Pozuelo rescuing Toronto FC there from an embarrassing, I think, 2-1 defeat to the Chicago Fire at home.
100%.
The first one was the penalty, which I think TFC kind of caught a break on. It was a penalty because he was inside the box when the foul was initiated. Still, corner of the box, that's just a break that they get, which is fine.
It's nice to get lucky breaks sometimes, yeah.
He tucks it away, and then of course the goal, which I think is probably one of the best goals that we've seen out of Alejandro Pozuelo since his 2019 season, I'd say, when he introduced himself to the faithful at BMO Field. So an exciting day for Poz. We'll get into Pozuelo a little bit more in a bit, but first I want to go to this because I was listening to our sister podcast there on the Tunnel Club post-game show with Mike Newell and Sean, which was absolutely another fantastic episode. And they had a great debate. And it's something I've seen some people already message about in the chat. Quentin Westberg versus Alex Bono. The goalkeeping controversy right now at Toronto FC. Q has got the last 2 games in goal. Both of those actually ended up being victories. The one to HFX, which, I mean, if it wasn't a victory, sirens would be sounded. And then, of course, Bob Bradley elects to go back to Q in goal for the Chicago Fire. Came away with a win despite conceding twice. Who's the TFC number one moving forward for you, Jeff? Is it just the guy who kind of gets wins here at this point?
No, because we keep their first game back from long delays are howlers. I mean, Q, when he comes back after a long delay, is the shakiest person in the universe and gives up the softest goals, right? These guys need reps. So I don't care who it is as long as we ride with one and dismiss the other, because this platooning them is not working. This leaving them, you know what? That's not necessarily fair. We're not platooning them. This was Q's first game action in months and months and months and months and months. So it's fair to think that he's rusty. I guess the question now, and I wasn't privy to the Tunnel Club because I had something to do on that time, but I guess the question now is that, do we believe enough in Q to give him the keys to the car and let him have a run of games, right? Over Bono's run of games, which was less than stellar. Let's be honest. I mean, we're circling the drain in terms of records of TFC clean sheets now, like how long we've gone without one. That to me is the debate. Not do we run? Because it's so funny. I wanted to say when you were talking about the O'Neill sub, as limited as my knowledge of footy tactics is, and I appreciate that I'm getting more and more. The more I do this, the more reps I get.
You're getting better.
I was told you never, ever, ever, ever sub your center backs unless they're injured. So I'm pleased that it was an injury, because I didn't know that at the game. And to me, it seemed like tinkering. It was like galaxy brain. Like, why are we subbing a center back for the second half? And it's the same thing.
You can't really talk in absolutes there, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. But
you think about the Chris Mavinga substitution against Dallas, right?
True.
Chris Mavinga was.
There's always an exception to every rule.
That was a tactic, exactly, right?
But I would say that more often than not, you don't, because the tendency for disaster is that much greater,
Fair.
Right? And it's the same. It's the same with the goalkeeper, right? Like the adage is you run with the hot hands, which seems to be wholly ignored by this administration, by the regime at the top, right? Bono hasn't had the hottest hands in the world, and we've had somebody waiting in the wings. The fact that he wasn't getting minutes led us all to believe that he was absolute garbage in training, or that there was an interpersonal drama, or whatever speculation we were coming up with, right? And it was almost vindicated, because his first kick of the can, he was garbage out there. That first start, the first half versus HFX, he looked rusty, because he was. Training does not equal real game experience. So now the question has to be asked, does he have hot hands? I mean, we're still without a clean sheet, but we've won twice. So by basic arithmetic, he's the hot hand, so we run with him now. Which brings us back to zero, which is, well, now Alex Bono, who's making this amount of cash, is sitting on the bench, and how does that bode with in MLS terms? I think
Okay.
The issue can be simplified, and I think you're about to do it. So I cede the floor to you.
Yeah. No. Well, I was thinking. Just let me rephrase it, because you're going in a bunch of different directions there, but you're talking more in sort of short term future for both Alex Bono and Quentin Westberg, who is the guy kind of in goal. And someone I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name who it was on the Tunnel Club yesterday, brought up a really interesting point. Both Alex Bono and Quentin Westberg are in the final years of their contract. That's my understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
Bono's obviously making, as you mentioned, Jeff, a significant amount of money.
Far too much.
About $550,000. That's about $75,000 less than I think the maximum slot for a regular player. Let's call it an MLS. So for a first team goalkeeper, like, he's already making a lot for a first choice goalkeeper. He's probably among the top 10 paid goalkeepers in Major League Soccer,
if not the top 5. I mean, Tim Howard's not getting
5.
that DP deal anymore, so the zany goalkeeper contract era is over.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's up there. It was the point that was made is, what if Bono was being shopped? What if he was being given these run of games to kind of showcase himself?
Work like gangbusters
to the league. I mean, as you mentioned, like, Bono hasn't been bad. Like, he's been asked to do a lot. I wrote an article about a couple of weeks ago about how TFC are leaving him out to dry, because I mean, they allow the most
Well
chances
then,
in
well
the
then,
league by
well then,
far.
what's the point of putting him in the shop window if they're leaving him out to dry? Then it's a self-fulfilling negative prophecy, right? Like we've had
I
this
mean, the plan
conversation.
wasn't to leave him out to dry.
No, of course not. But eventually, I mean, you course correct then. What were how many games into the season of this clean sheet break, right? Like you're so
So the question is, Jeff,
because we've
is there
had
a
this
team in Major
conversation
League
before
Soccer? Is there
that
a team
wants
in
Alex
Major League
Bono.
Soccer that would take Alex Bono?
I can't
Is
I
there a
can't
team
think
that
of
thinks
one.
their goaltending maybe is a little bit shaky? They can sort of improve that because Alex Bono's like, I don't think he's an elite team starter. I think he can definitely start for a lower side.
So do
Like,
I.
he's not
But
bad.
his price tag precludes that. I mean, what any team that I can think of that would be willing to take a flyer on him is not in the market for a $500,000 a year goalkeeper. It's as simple as that. And I mean, this is a cyclical conversation. This isn't the first time we've had this conversation about are they trying to shop Bones? What teams are gonna take him on for that kind of money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, ad infinitum, ad nauseum, and you know, the idea of putting. Do you want to win or do you want to sell players? Right. I need to break it down to that. You know, if you're a developmental side, then put him on TFC2. You know
You
what
might
I
have to
mean? And put him
accomplish
in the.
both, right?
But it's not
And in order
working.
to get to the winning side, you need to sell players. And you saw the regime come in this offseason, get rid of 18 players.
Sure,
Maybe Alex
sure.
Bono needed a bit of a showcase to catch a team's eye. I don't know if it worked. I don't know if it
Do you
didn't
think his
work.
stock has risen? I mean, do you think in any way, shape, and form his stock has risen over this run of games? What team wants to sign up to a 13 game non clean sheet streak?
It's tough because we're looking at it through that lens, right?
I
But he
can't.
also
I
leads.
cannot
He
imagine
also
anybody with a pocketbook is not going to look at it through that lens, right? Any
he
club
leads Major
owner.
League Soccer in saves. He's also, when you look at, if you want to go into advanced stats, when you look at the expected goals against, he actually has more saves than the expected goals against. He's saving more shots than what's supposed to be finding the back of the net. So in that light,
Yeah,
maybe there is a team out there that's not on the inside like we are, that we've seen Bono. We've been frustrated with his sort of play. Maybe there's a team out there that sees this guy as potentially a valuable piece because he's still 28 years old.
you should be his agent, man. I'm just saying. Listen, if I'm signing somebody for $500,000, which is well ahead of the going rate, and the person making that sale says page 1 stinks, but if you look at page 2, man, it's amazing. You're out the door, right? I'm not looking at page 2 for a major outlay of cash. I want page 1 to be screaming with A pluses. Right. And then page 2 is the gravy where I'm like, oh my God, he also can drive stick. This is amazing. Let's sign him right away. But not, I'm not willing to overlook page 1 for any amount of money in a league where parity rules when I'm working on a team where that's a significant outlay of cash, a
So I'm happy
significant
you're going
albatross
this way.
contract. Mm-hmm.
I'm happy you're going this. So then let me ask you: are either of these guys the solution in
No,
goal for Toronto FC moving forward?
no, we've answered that question, and I think it's time to put that to bed. It's time for fresh blood back there. Something we haven't seen before. Somebody that is younger than Q, and is better than Bones at doing the things that need to be done. I mean, the you want your play. I don't like going down this tangent because it's starting to feel personal, but at the end of the day, you want your players to improve year over year, right? Nothing has happened with his distribution. And this is years into this right now. He's not getting any better at distribution. In fact, he's regressing at distribution. He's now handing the ball to like Salcedo or one of his center backs to do his kicks instead of him on goalkeeper possession, right? There are keepers that are making a tenth of what he's making in this league that don't have to do this. So why are we settling for this? Do you know what I mean? It's a contract year. We've done our due diligence. We've put him in the shop window as many times as possible. Our club can't be a club of free rides anymore. You know what I mean? It just can't. I thought we were over that already with this Bob Bradley regime, where anybody on the periphery that wasn't fully invested is outie. So I think we need to adhere to that standard, right? Like, I think the conversation is over, right? We won an MLS Cup. That's great. There's a lot of people that have that championship ring that are no longer involved in the club for various reasons. That can't be the only reason. Like loyalty and adherence cannot be the only reason to hold on to people. It's a contract year. You thank them for their service, and we find somebody else. They're not the only two goalkeepers in the world. We can't keep circling around this conversation about we've got to counter for this person's deficiencies or that person's deficiencies. It's time. It's time to make a clean break. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, you said it in a lot longer way than I probably would have said it. You're probably a little bit more passionate about it than I would have said it. But yeah, simply put, neither of these guys, I think, are sort
Is
of
the
the
guy.
long-term solutions here at Toronto FC. I think Bono would be. I still think he's a very good 1B option in goal if you want to
Not
head
at
that route, but
500K.
not at this price tag, right? So unless he's willing to take a significant pay cut on his next deal, I don't see a way that he stays here with Toronto FC beyond this season, and that's because Bono is the best guy in the dressing room. If he's not the best, he's one of the best. He's a class act, a great professional. Same with
It's
Q.
too bad you don't
Both of
win
those
games in
guys
the
are
dressing
amazing.
room.
And that's the thing, right? We're at a point where it's TFC are rebuilding, and if you're not going to be part of that solution moving forward, then
who's to say that goalkeeper X or goalkeeper Y isn't a better fit in the dressing room, right? That can't be the only metric. You know, it's holding on to something that's good enough when this is a results-based business, and good enough is not working, and somebody has to be brave enough to rubber stamp change, and that's what we've done over the last season. So
I think
pull back now and
coming.
say,
and I think it's
so
coming. It's not like we can do this mid-season, right? So
No.
change is going to be coming. Everyone's taken into account what's been happening, and if there's one person that I trust to kind of make those changes, even if they're hard decisions, it's Bob Bradley. But Jeff, speaking of hard decisions, this one is probably the hardest one that Toronto FC are going to have to make in a very long time. And it's the contract of Alejandro Pozuelo. As you mentioned, this guy's a game breaker. We all saw it on Saturday. When he's on his game, Toronto FC are much better. He's the best player on Toronto FC when he's on his game. But
can I go? When he's on his game is not the system that we want from him. He can be on his game on a different team, but the team that Bob Bradley wants to build, as far as I can infer, has no place for this guy. We've tried. He has no defensive responsibility whatsoever. So are we going to coast on individual brilliance, or are we going to build the team that we signed up for and make another hard decision, which is Bob does not like number 10s at all. He likes number 8s. And if he uses a number 10, it's more of a hybrid 10 with a much more of a defensive. He does not like free rolls in the attacking third without any defensive acumen. His whole system is based on that. So and we can't play with 10 men on defense. We can barely play with 11 men on defense. He's a liability, not just, and again, individual brilliance is great. Game breaking is great, but you can't build a team on that. You can't. So you cannot expect this guy to.
Jeff.
Okay.
You can have one of those players on your pitch. I think when Lorenzo Insigne arrives, two of those players are going to drive Bob Bradley crazy. And if you're picking between
absolutely 100%,
you're picking Lorenzo. So let me play a clip here. I asked Bob Bradley after Toronto FC's win against the Chicago Fire when Pozuelo scored those 2 goals. Bob wasn't really having it. I asked him about Pozuelo's contract. Bob wasn't really having it. Here's the clip. Alejandro Pozuelo is obviously a very important player to the squad. He's going to be out of contract at the end of the year.
I'm not talking about that, so cut you off right now. I'm not talking about his contract. So
spicy.
So, yeah, I mean, so let me, I guess, paint the picture here. This is one of the few games where Alejandro Pozuelo did something really positive. this is one of the few games where Alejandro Pozuelo had leverage in sort of his discussions.
I disagree, but I can see where you're going.
Well, I mean, he's coming off a 2-goal heroic performance. He scored that golazo. Alejandro Pozuelo somewhat has a better leg to stand on after this game as opposed to Bob Bradley. And I think, as Richard's kind of saying, between the lines, if you're reading there, I think it's kind of hinting as what you were kind of alluding to, Jeff. It's that I don't think Pozuelo is necessarily a Bob Bradley type of player. Bob Bradley
He isn't.
obviously arrived after the arrival of Pozuelo, and while he is a fantastic player when he's on his game, there's a lot of missing parts to his game that I think Bob Bradley's tried to unlock, untap, and it hasn't happened.
It hasn't been working.
Yet. So,
And when left to his own devices out there on the pitch, when it's not working for him, he makes his own decisions independent of the rest of the squad. Starts going to chase the ball, falls into his old habits, which, would be good habits on a team that isn't a Bob Bradley team. This is a done deal for me. He's had his chance. Thank you for your service. Those chips with Sean Johnson were great. But it's a results-oriented business. And one of the things that I've appreciated so much about this season is the brutality of these moves. If you can't cut it, buy. There's 100,000 other teams out there. This is the standard at Toronto FC. This is the standard that I abide to. We're not doing what we used to do. Off the back of winning an MLS Cup, I mean, it's there in the chat. What this Bono contract has been an albatross since 2018 because we were so excited by our success that we almost got in our own way with these deals that we handed out. We have to be brutal in a way that I don't think we properly understand. I mean, at least we get to make the decision this time. We held on to the albatross that was Josie Altidore for what, 3 years too late. We held on to the embers of the fire that was Sebastian Giovinco after he slighted us. For how long until we realized that the show was over? At least we get to make our own decision. Soteldo, the only way we were getting rid of that clown was to make a swap for Salcedo at a DP rate. We get to choose our own destiny here, and I will be so disappointed in this club if loyalty and the intangibles trump on-field performance, right? It's a simple assignment. You have defensive responsibilities.
There's no loyalty left at Toronto FC.
If you can't hack it, then you're gone. It should be that simple, right? This isn't a role player. This isn't Tsubasa Endo, who we're getting for a song that can come on and be a late game sub and do moments of individual brilliance and magic. This is one of our designated players, and the standard has to be higher. And if you can't hack it, then find somewhere else to ply your wares, man.
Is Alejandro Pozuelo playing below the standard of a designated player in Major League Soccer?
And here's where we come to Anthony Curry's stats that he was kind enough to tweet out this morning. This is through 12 MLS games in 2022. The man has played 1,046 minutes. He's got 4 goals. He's got 4 assists, which is the co-team high. He's got 130.75 minutes per goal contribution, 81% pass accuracy, 22 key passes, which is the team high, and 17 tackles won, which is the team high. So looking at that on paper, that's a DP. Looking at the team as they play, this disjointed mess, I mean, good for him, but it's not working. You know what I mean? Just my eye test is in complete direct opposition to the stats as presented.
Let me ask you: Is it the player itself, or is it Bob Bradley's system?
How can they be excluded? It's both. It's Bob Bradley's system and the player. If he can't meet the requirements of Bob Bradley's system, it's the player. But because Bob Bradley has a system, it's Bob Bradley. So I would say it's both.
So that's kind of like what the debate that we were kind of we've seen this so many different times. Think about when Greg Vanney came in.
Mm-hmm.
The first year of Vanney, Pozuelo was used often as a winger, out on the right wing, out of the left wing.
The first year Paz came nuts. In, not the first year Vanney came.
The first year of Vanney with Paz.
With
right?
Paz, yeah.
It drove TFC fans nuts. The best
Yeah, it did.
version of Paz that we saw that year in 2019 was when he played as a false nine when Josie went down
I
injured.
agree.
And we
I
went to the
absolutely agree.
postseason.
Not the free roll 10, the
The
false
next
9. You're
year,
100%.
that was in 2019. He wasn't a 10.
Mm-hmm.
But next year, his MVP year, Vanny changed
Also a
his
COVID
system.
year.
But he changed his system. And he
Mhm.
played Paz exclusively as a number 10. He did whatever he could to tweak his system to play it around Pozuelo.
Sure.
TFC ended up having a great year. I mean, second in the Supporters' Shield standings. They obviously fizzled off towards the end of the year. They got the best out of Pozuelo that way. But Vanny had to tweak his system.
Sure.
So it comes down to kind of, I guess, what Bob Bradley wants to do. And this is what it's a luxury, but it's also a very big decision he has to make coming in as a new coach. Is he the type of player that you want to invest a DP slot in when you're already investing a DP slot in Salcedo and as well as Lorenzo Insigne? That's going to be the question. And,
I think we already know the answer, but
I think we already know the answer towards which way they're leaning towards. But then you also have to factor in the fact when Lorenzo Insigne arrives, what if all of a sudden that, for whatever reason, I'm not saying
they form the best partnership in the league, then we count the best
partnership in the league.
We count our blessings and we sign him for another 1,000 years. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, not that.
Well, maybe not 1,000 years, but we count our blessings that the fickle finger of fate and Lady Luck smiled on us, and we certainly extend his deal for a year and see what happens. A cautiously optimistic approach. Because let's put it this way. There's a lot of question marks about Insigne's arrival. If he comes and has instant Pablo Piatti chemistry with Pozuelo, and we throw that away, it's just as stupid as keeping Paz as an 8 when he can't play the position, right? Like that sort of makes a new decision for us. Do I think that's going to happen? Fingers crossed. Do I expect it to happen? Absolutely not. I expect it to be a comedy of errors, like Keystone Cops out there.
So let me throw this to you before I play our next clip. It's actually we press pause, I guess, on his upcoming contract discussions. But before I play that, let me ask you. You mentioned here how pause doesn't work in Bob Bradley's system. He's not a Bob Bradley type of player. Let's say the contract was for max allocation money. Max TAM, the Michael Bradley deal. Do you re-sign Pozuelo, or is it just the DP spot that's kind of hinging that?
No. If there isn't magic when the reinforcements arrive, if it's still the same plodding, inconsistent mess, occasionally peppered with Golazzos, it's not worth it. There are plenty of other players out there. It's not worth it to hang your hat on this and get the 3-2 victory over the Chicago Fire when he's feeling himself and go down 1,000-0 versus better teams in the league because he's not, right? Like, why are we that cheapens the value of this club? We don't have we shouldn't have any loyalty to anybody, right? Money talks. There's a lot of soccer players out there, and the beauty is that every year there's a whole new crop of them. So to take good enough is ridiculous. And I don't want my club doing that.
Okay, no, that's fair. I think it's a no-brainer to re-sign Paz if it's not a DP contract because I think he's an absolute baller. I think he is probably worthy of a DP, just maybe not a DP on this current Toronto FC team.
But he's still starting. He would still start every game, which means that he's blocking somebody else's pathway, which means that we're not signing somebody better, which
You're
means
still getting
that
a pretty dang good player. I mean, it's not like he's
one or two Golazzos
to...
against Chicago Fire. Who cares? Who cares, man? I want Golazzos against the Seattle Sounders. Like, I want to be better up in the standings. Like one or two, rescuing us from ourselves in a game against the Chicago Fire.
Did he score a pretty nice goal against the Philadelphia Union this year?
Again,
a pretty nice goal.
Moments of individual brilliance when the whole team is unstuck. And he's, barreling in and just taking the game by his shoulders and shooting from outside the box or dribbling past everybody is great for highlight reels. But you can't build a team off the back of that. These are outliers. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would rather see a well-built team attack that ends in a goal 100 out of 100 times than a moment of individual brilliance with this squad, with this system. That we're supposed
For
to be a
sure.
team
But
that builds, and that's the beauty in this. Like this possession and just let the DP go and have it is not what we were sold with respect to how TFC 2022 is going to do business. And I think the quicker that we realize that is the old way and that the new way is a focused teamed attack, the better off we are.
okay.
And I say this as we're expecting the greatest player, potentially the greatest individual player that's ever played in the league to arrive. I realize how stupid I sound, but again, if I can't be contrary here, then where am I going to get my jollies, right?
Okay, let me play the pause clip for you guys. You guys might need to turn up
Please.
the volume to hear my questioning and Neil's questioning. Neil Davidson, Canadian Press. I think Steve Buffery's in there as well. But it's a 2-minute clip, so just bear with us.
Talks going on about a new contract with your agent?
No, I always say I'm happy here. So this is a good question for the president, for the coaches. I'm professional. I know this is my last year for the moment here, and yeah, I try to play like this to help the team. I'm professional, and yeah, I try to give my best. The easy way, some player when they have the last year and they have some problem or pain in the body, they try to protect because this is the last year. But I'm not playing like this. I try to play with pain, without pain. I try to help the team, to help Toronto because they give me a lot. So I try to push myself to give my maximum to this team.
We asked the coach, he didn't want to comment on it.
So very good.
Mentally, is it tough playing in sort of the last year of your contract without?
No, I'm 30 years. I have my money. I have my life sorted, so I play to enjoy. I don't need anymore. So I play to enjoy, to play for my family, for my friends. I try to enjoy. I don't need anymore.
But you'd like to stay here?
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy here, But this is the football. Sometimes you are here, sometimes you are in other place. You never control this. So, what I say, I push myself. I'm professional, so I can give my maximum.
You mentioned there that money wasn't really concerned.
No, this is not my problem right now.
Would you consider a non-designated player contract?
Sorry?
Would you consider a non-designated player contract? So
I love the
that
ending
actually
there.
cut off there. It actually cut off, but he said this
No.
is not the right time to speak about this. We have a lot of time. This is not the right time to speak about this. I mean, he was pretty open about speaking about everything else, but his response to that question kind of tells me he doesn't really want to go on record saying he wants a designated player contract. So in that light,
And he
let's
doesn't
say
want to go
doesn't-
on record saying that he'd be willing to take a hometown discount, because then you might as well not go to the negotiation table if you say publicly, yeah, I'm willing to take less money. I mean, I don't want a player playing for fun. I want a player playing to win. There's a lot to unpack in that answer there, and none of it is good to me. I mean, I already got my money. Cool, then go open a restaurant or something, man. Like I want players that want to win. That kind of blasé attitude. I mean, is that supposed to inspire confidence? Because it sure as hell didn't in where I'm sitting.
I think you're reading a little bit too far into that.
That's what I do.
His English isn't the best, first of all.
Mhm.
So I think we need to see it through that sort of lens. You kind of have to really understand what he's trying to say. He's not playing for money anymore, which is great. He says he wants to stay in Toronto, which is great. What do Toronto FC want? And I think that's kind of what this will come down to. Just a friendly reminder, he will be eligible to sign a pre-contract with the club overseas or maybe even Liga MX come July 1st. So something to keep an eye on as we kind of move throughout the season. And I still think that this will come down to Lorenzo Insigne and Paz's relationship.
100%.
We know which way
1,000,000%.
they're leaning, but there is sort of that ace card that Paz has up his sleeve, and it's whether or not he can kind of get along with Lorenzo better than what he's shown so far. So something just to keep an eye on. I think that's kind of enough on this topic. We've
Yeah, absolutely,
kind of
without question.
beat it to death here. So now moving on in our kind of timeline here, our rundown. I'm looking at the process here. So let me just phrase it to you as it's phrased on our rundown.
Mm-hmm.
Have you lost any faith in the process?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Why is that?
Because I'm seeing regression. I'm not seeing progression. I'm seeing a lot of regression, and I'm seeing players. And this isn't pause. This is the kids. I'm seeing players get overwhelmed and fall into bad habits on the pitch far too often for my liking. It's and I think that it's unfair to ask this question because I don't think the youth movement was ever intended to be this absolute. I think injuries and form have really, 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 really impacted the process. But I'm still going to answer the question because there was enough faith in the process to get rid of all of our left backs, all of our outside backs, aside from children at the outset of the season. This front office was confident enough and did the arithmetic, as faulty as it turned out to be, because you have to factor for injuries. This is Toronto FC. When are we not injured? Over the last 5 years, when have we not been injured? I mean, so somebody made the calculus and said, we're going to be okay without any natural fullbacks converting half of our kids until at least the summer. And that was an error. So when you ask me, do you because it didn't account for outside factors, and it didn't account. It was a rose-colored impression of the goings-on.
Are you looking at that? Are you looking at that through the lens that Toronto FC are going to be competitors this year?
I don't think we're competitors this year.
Right. So
I've said goodbye to that already.
Let's say they know that, right? They know that they're not competitors this season. Does that really matter if they bring in a left back or right back then?
You know how huge that an ask that is of this fan base to sit on our hands for multiple transfer windows and multiple seasons, especially coming out of a pandemic, coming out of this massive transition. I somewhere along the line there a calculus took place that either ignored the passions of the fan base, ignored the realities of life in this league, and just ignored realities. So your question, as worded, I consider that part of the process. So there's what I'm seeing on the field, which is players far too often, when left to their own devices, are either roaming around in a pseudo free roll and just abandoning any responsibility on the pitch. And that has to start somewhere. And the fact that at its outset, this process took far too many shortcuts with real world realities, and we're seeing that manifest now. I mean, this is a Hail Mary process. So how can I have faith in a Hail Mary, right? We were preached a measured approach that had thought behind it, and I'm seeing the cracks there now. So that's how I answer your question.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna be able to fully see what this process looks like this season. I think we're gonna see steps towards it. As you mentioned lately, it does look like a regression, Jeff. You're absolutely bang on. But also, they kind of set the worst favor TFC did themselves this year is going on that 4-game unbeaten run where they picked up 3 victories,
I agree.
including twice over the FC and the Philadelphia Union. Because even in my mind, looking at that, I'm like, 1,000% this Toronto FC team is a playoff team this year. Just wait till Lorenzo and Singh arrives. Wait till further reinforcements arrive. You add that to this group of players, and oh my God, we have something special here. This year. I don't think Toronto FC management and I don't think I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but I don't think the team president or Bob Bradley or whoever else is making decisions back there, they're thinking that. I don't think they're thinking that this team is going to go into the summer and compete. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to sneak into the playoffs as well. Do I think they're going to be contenders? Not necessarily. But I also think they could go on a run here because of the groundwork that's being set, because of the minutes they're given to some of their young guys, the experience that they're getting. That they can go on here and be a solid club come August. And we know what can happen from that point on. And we've seen firsthand what can happen is once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. That being said, I think it'd be very optimistic to say that this team.
I'd be more surprised than 2019, and I was hella surprised with our run in 2019. So I stopped short of saying I'll eat my hat because I don't like eating hats, but I would be profoundly surprised if we do any damage in the postseason this year. And I've made my peace with that a long time ago. I just don't know if the club has. There's so many contrary ideas going on, right? Be patient. This year's going to suck. Here comes Lorenzo Insigne. Like, it's so schizophrenic. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's such a good point you make there, Jeff, because there's been question marks even when he was first signed is whether this was the right time to go out and swing for the fences and get a piece like Lorenzo Insigne. You think about what Insigne's watching. He watches every Toronto FC game, apparently.
Of course.
What is going through his mind when he's watching these games? What's going through Insigne's mind when he leaves Napoli, a club that he obviously adores, his hometown, to come to Toronto and play alongside a lot of kids? What is he going to think about that? And that's what I'm going to say is you look at Shaqiri and look how frustrated he looks on the pitch. I mean, there are times on that game I'm like, man, this guy really wants out of Chicago already.
Oh, obviously, yeah, he looked way too
far into that.
I think everybody that watched that game had the same impression. So, yeah.
What's Lorenzo going to think? We've seen versions of Paz this season where he's being frustrated because of who he's playing.
But he's playing for fun, Mike. I mean, again, I won't go back there. It was lost in translation. I'm not gonna kick a man when he's down because it's his second language. But yeah,
I mean, he shouldn't even be down. Like he just scored 2 goals, 2 brilliant goals. Like he should be standing on. Like, but anyways, going back to Lorenzo, I mean, you have to imagine like he must have been given some sort of blueprint of kind of what's supposed to happen. Clearly, Toronto FC need more than just Insigne, and that's coming. That's fine. I guess if you're looking to the summer and what type of players Toronto FC need to go after, obviously a defender, and we all know the name that's going to come. What else do they need, Jeff, to kind of help Lorenzo Insigne here?
A clue? I don't know, man. Let's give him a week to settle in before we start. No, because there's been so many takes like we need to destroy the whole roster. Well, we just did that. I mean, how often are we just gonna set fire to the locker room? I think at this point it's about, how it's a month inside a month before
they have
Lorenzo arrived.
They have open roster spots, right?
And a ton of cash and a ton of cash. So let's not make
I've
any
actually been told
decisions.
They don't have that much wiggle room, as much as it may seem. I've been told they don't have.
What did they spend it on? What's Jimenez costing us?
I think we know what Jimenez is costing us.
Okay. Regardless of that, I think doing anything right now before our tent pole arrives is foolish. Let him come in, let him settle. Let's see what we got with this guy, and then start thinking about a big ticket arrangement. Certainly, our defense is porous and garbage. I'm not impressed with Salcedo at all. I'm far more impressed with him than the guy that we got out the door for him, though. But I'm not at all impressed with him.
You can't really compare those two. What about Salcedo to Omar Gonzalez?
I mean, look at our defensive record. Is it a humongous upgrade?
Okay,
I don't
you
know.
can look at it like if you're just looking at it stats wise, sure, but come on, the quality of player it's day and night, right? As well
The man
done
is
saying.
injured.
I mean,
The man is perpetually injured.
he hasn't been injured once this season.
Salcedo?
He hasn't been injured
I mean,
once. He got COVID.
Okay, fine. So he missed some games from COVID. But he's not a dyed in the wool starter. There have been games that he's missed where he hasn't started, and
only because
because COVID. Fine. Anyways,
COVID
not impressed with him.
and
Let's just
the red
we'll just dumb that down to I'm not very impressed. But again, what I wouldn't change anything right now because what's the point? What's the point? There's a giant variable, a giant Italian winger, left winger size variable that needs to be plugged before we actually know what we've got. So making moves now seems ridiculous to me. Seems ridiculous.
No, I mean, you need to get him help, right? If TFC want to sneak into the playoffs here, they need help. But you can accomplish both. You can bring in a long-term solution, as well as bringing in a player that can help now. And I think that's kind of what the club is trying to do here. What I'll say is there's a couple former TFC players that I think the club is keeping a close eye on. And
Nico Hassler's coming back? Yes.
They're receptive of the idea of a couple of their players, a couple of former players returning. That's all I'll say for now. But just something to keep in mind is sort of this window progression, because it's going to be an interesting one. I think they, as you kind of point out, Jeff, they do need to see more and kind of what's going on here. But they also need to bring in help July 1, because there is a chance here that TFC do sneak into the playoffs. And if they do, one and done games in MLS with Lorenzo and Singh, with Pozuelo, with some of the pieces they have. If Ozo's back healthy and he's going.
Sure.
Like, this is a team that's capable of making noise in the postseason if they can get in.
Yep.
But the full rebuild, we're not going to see the full reaps of that, because you need guys like Ozo, or sorry, guys like, let's say, Alex Bono coming off the books.
Yep. Absolutely.
You need guys like Chris Mavinga at this point coming off the books. You need guys that they're spending. Michael Bradley still makes $1.5 million this year. I don't. He's out of contract at the end of the season. They're obviously going to get a new deal done. What that looks like, I'm sure that'll save TFC an extra couple bucks.
Sure.
So the full rebuild we're not going to see until at least another year. But is there a chance that this team brings in enough pieces to kind of get them over the line here, the playoff line, and get in? I think that's kind of what we're gearing towards.
Yeah, there's always a chance, but I would not hang my hat on it. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. So
yeah,
let's just wrap up. We'll save our draft to next week. We're gonna meet Jeff and I. Our best and worst contracts on Toronto FC. Always fun to play a little bit of armchair GM there. Quickly, Jeff, over a third of the way through the season, who has been TFC's MVP so far this year?
Jonathan Osorio, and that's not even particularly close. He's been the heartbeat of this team. He's put the team on his back, and everything flows through him. So I can't think of anybody more deserving. Do you agree?
You're reading my articles.
Of course I do.
You took my answer.
Of course I do. Why would I not be reading your articles? We host a show together. It behooves me to know what's going on in life.
Yeah, no, Ozo. It's been Ozo. Any other answer is probably wrong, but I'm gonna give some honorable mentions. Jesus Jimenez.
Yeah, I'd give him an honorable mention.
He's gone 5 games without a goal now, 6 games without a goal if you include the Canadian Championship. So there is that.
But his movement is elite. depending on what we're getting him for, which kind of segues into the draft that we're no longer doing. But this guy is a steal. This guy is as close to a Victor Vasquez kind of deal as we've had since Victor Vasquez. So absolutely, does he trump Oso? Without question, no way, Jose, does he trump Oso? He's a very good number 2. Great pick for number 2. He can be the Robin to Oso's Batman, but he's not taking that top spot.
Okay, how about this?
Mm.
Michael Bradley.
No. And it
But
pains me to say it.
But you thought about it.
It pains me to say it. No, I always think about it. The man is the soul of this club. I mean, I say that with absolute certainty. The TFC and Michael Bradley are intrinsically linked together, and in a way that no other player comes close to. That means he gets to be on the box that the team gear comes in, but it doesn't mean he's taking MVP honors from Osario in terms of performance on the pitch this year. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I'd still go with Oso, like I said off the top, but Michael Bradley, man, and people are so quick to jump on him when he's not playing well, but when he is, no one hears a word about him. He's one of the more unheralded players on this team, and I think the last 7-8 games, Michael Bradley has been fantastic. And if we can get some support around him with the work that he's being asked to do, I mean, I hope that we can maintain this version of Michael Bradley through the course of this season, because he's had a really big bounce back season. He's 35, and it's crazy the minutes that he's logging and the quality that he's still able to put out week after week. So got to give an honorable shout out to Michael Bradley, and of course my boy Luca Pedrasso, MVP. It's just for being Luca Pedrasso, I'm going to give you the MVP award, because love Luca Pedrasso.
All right, then I'll take Ozo, and I'll be right, and you can take Luca Pedrasso and be wrong, and I win, and that's perfect for me. Fantastic.
Okay.
Love it.
Let's wrap up our show on a bright note, a bright spot. Let's talk about our boy Richie Laryea, Nottingham Forest, going back to the Premier League for the first time in 23 years. Absolute bright spot. We got to be happy for our guy Richie Laryea. I mean, this guy's
congratulations.
Obviously been through a lot with Nottingham Forest. He's still trying to get into the side there, but hey, we can say that a former Toronto FC player is about to go play in the Premier League. And it's a big if. I know a lot of people are kind of poking holes. It's a big if. I'll tell you guys right now.
It's a huge if.
If Richie Laryea will stay with Nottingham Forest next season. On the one hand, I mean, that opens the floor to a kind of a debate. On the one hand, you can say you're a Premier League player, which is something all of these youngsters kind of strive to do. On the other, you can say you're a Premier League bench player, if you even get on the bench. So that's what Richie has to decide.
You're a Carabao Cup player.
He's what, 27 years old, I think, turning this year?
Exactly.
I think he still has his best years ahead of him. Can he afford another year where he doesn't get playing time here?
No.
And be a
Premier League player, or? It's not going to kill him. It's obviously not going to kill him sitting on the bench, right? But can his the intangibles career-wise afford it? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, and Brad's saying, why would Forest loan out their own player they can market as the only player on the squad who will be at the World Cup? I mean, maybe that doesn't come down to just what Forest want, right?
I don't think Nottingham
and
Forest
he'll still be a Forest player.
Of a crap about promoting somebody on the Canadian men's national team playing in the World Cup. I think it's a funny soundbite for us, but I think Nottingham Forest, having just been promoted for the first time in 30-something years, they have bigger fish to fry than making a fun little gif of Richie Laryea, suiting up for the Canadian men's national team. They got bigger battles to fight.
Yeah. And I see a lot of people making this point as well. Man, there's going to be so many changes at that Forest club. I think we see it every year when a side goes
With
from
when a
championship
side gets promoted.
to
Yeah,
Premier. It looks completely different the next season.
100%.
So I don't think
100%.
I think that's kind of a moot point because the club's going to look completely different. They're going to be bringing in wing backs if they think that's a hole. And
Yep.
from the
And he couldn't
impressions that I'm
break into
getting,
the championship side. So this expectation that he's suddenly going, this will be the most important offseason.
like not even
in
off
his
the
career.
bench.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is the most, I mean,
Yeah.
I would say his trial with TFC in 2019 was pretty damn important. This beats that immeasurably. This is the most important offseason in his career. If he can get in, then he is legendary and he deserves to be a Premier League player. If he can't, then we need to put a stop to this horrible experience. And you know, he needs to find a new outlet to supply his wares.
And where does he go, Jeff? Where does he go?
Maybe Forest loans him to a
I'll leave.
championship side. He signed to play in the championship, not the Premier League. So, you know, it's not really a lateral move if he's loaned out to a side in the championship. You know, the man needs to play, right? And let's be honest,
It's a World Cup year.
He's played what 120 minutes, not even for Nottingham in the Champo. Like, that might be his level. We don't know yet. So it may, you know, he may not be a Premier League level player, and that's fine. There are a lot of guys that don't make the cut, right? Just because his team got promoted doesn't mean that he's going to go on the journey. And all signs point to that not being the case. So
we'll see. Let's paint the picture. Premier League resumes, I believe, in August. I think training camps open in July. They typically go on some tour. I don't know if that's going to be the case with Forest, but typically preseason is around July. End of July. Could something happen, I guess, between now and then? Something to keep a close eye on. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Jeff, Monday is in the books. I think this might be our first Monday show ever.
I think it is.
It absolutely is. Chat, you guys were on fire today. We had so
Thank
much
you, chat. It's really
comments.
Appreciated. Yeah. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of you, but
yeah, I saw a lot of, you know, faces that we've seen before, and we appreciate you guys.
Love it.
I've seen a lot of new faces as well chime in. So maybe the 3 p.m. time change is fairly good, Jeff.
It works for me, buddy. So I think we stick with it until we can't. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cue up that show.
I better cue up that show.
Like,
we're gonna have to figure something out for new intros and outros. But until then, Mike, this was a pleasure, buddy. Let's take our leave of everybody, and I will see you next week, dude.
Yeah, for sure. TFC play in the 2020 Canadian Championship final on Saturday. This is 2022. This isn't a 2020 old show. The TFC gonna go for that trophy, first trophy of the year potentially against Forge at Tim Hortons Field. But yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed it. Leave us a nice rating if you enjoyed it. But on behalf of Jeffrey P. Nesker and myself, until next week.
Cheers, guys.
And wait, and baby, I'm TFC till I die.